There are no headlines for it, no single moment where everything changes. But if you look closely, you can see it happening all around us. Across Ohio and much of the country, farms that fed families for generations are quietly vanishing. They aren't failing. They are being repurposed, sometimes for housing, but increasingly for energy infrastructure and facilities that require massive amounts of power, water, and long-term contracts. I'm Rowan, and this is OTRA Legends. When my father died, our family was lucky. We kept the farm in farming hands. Today, many families don't get that chance. What started this investigation wasn't a statistic. It was a farm just up the road. It had been farmed for generations, and almost overnight, it was sold to a developer. Farms all around us were being sold and not kept in the family. Once we noticed it, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Some became housing developments. Others were converted into large solar installations, which now cover land once used to grow food. Just like this one here.
New obstacles such as solar farms, something he's been approached with before.
I'm not necessarily saying I'm against it, but because we need energy. The thing that I don't really like is trying to keep the energy in our community, and so we can make use of it, take away some of the farms and that aspect of it.
More recently, data centers began appearing in the same regions, raising new questions about land use, water demand, and long-term impact. It raised a simple question. Why is farmland disappearing so quickly, and what is it being replaced with? When we look at the data, part of the picture becomes clearer. According to the most recent USDA Census of Agriculture, about 1/3 of farm producers in the United States are 65 or older. We are standing on the edge of a massive generational transition. When these farmers retire or pass away, the land rarely stays in the family. It goes to the highest bidder. And right now, farming absorbs uncertainty, while development guarantees returns. What happens to that land depends on whether there is a next generation that is prepared, willing, and financially able to farm. Census data also shows that interest in farming itself has not disappeared. There has been growth among new and beginning farmers, including younger people entering agriculture, but those gains exist alongside intense economic pressure. In other words, people still want to farm. The challenge is that the current system makes it very difficult to stay. This is where I had to pause. Because if this many farmers are aging out at the same time and fewer farms exist each year, the question is no longer whether land will change hands. The question is, who will be able to afford it when it does? From a financial perspective, this shift is predictable. Land tends to move toward uses that can support taxes, insurance, maintenance, and long-term returns with less risk. Farming absorbs uncertainty. Infrastructure is built around contracts. This is where the story widens. It's not just about housing anymore. It's about what is being quietly put in place around the land. Large solar installations were not just panels and fields. They came with grid connections, transmission upgrades, and long-term energy contracts. These projects do not exist in isolation. They change what the land can support next. That raised a different kind of question. Not whether a specific project is planned here, but whether the conditions for larger, more energy-intensive development are being established years in advance. Because once land is connected to high-capacity power and long-term infrastructure, it enters a different category entirely. It becomes energy-ready. Across Ohio, utility-scale solar projects now span hundreds of acres and connect directly into regional transmission networks. One recently approved solar project in Claremont County covers more than 500 acres and includes battery storage and a direct grid tie-in. Projects like this are designed to operate for decades. They are not temporary. And once they are in place, the land rarely returns to agriculture. To understand whether this was isolated, it helped to look beyond Ohio's borders. In Indiana, reporting has documented farmland being sold near expanding metro areas as older farmers exit with land shifting toward development and energy infrastructure. For example, this tract of land in Indiana sold for $10.5 million. Who do you think bought this land, and what are they going to do with it? In West Virginia, communities have raised concerns about data centers arriving after energy capacity and power plants were already proposed, often under non-disclosure agreements that limit public visibility. In Kentucky, farmland continues to be lost near population centers despite preservation efforts, while industrial and infrastructure projects move in. This news story about a farm near Maysville is the exception.
Maysville, Kentucky is undeniable. Pristine creeks, rolling hills, fertile farmland. It's where Dr. Tim Grosser, about 30 years ago, bought 2 parcels of land, a total of 250 acres.
My grandson loves to come up here and hunt deer and turkeys, and it's just what we do.
Dr. Grosser has been farming the land with his son and hopes to keep it in his family for generations. But he's not the only one who wants to use the property.
For a project of this scale and magnitude, things change rapidly.
An engineering consultant for what we're told is one of the largest AI companies in the world answered questions last night at a planning commission meeting. The undisclosed company wants to buy Dr. Grosser's land and a lot more surrounding it in order to build a massive AI data center.
The data center developer is looking for about 2,000 acres outside of Maysville, including this land. The Grosser's property is just over that ridge, about 250 acres, but as you can see, there is plenty out here from which to choose.
But before the company can choose Mason County for its project, it needs landowners to sell the land. The market value for farmland here is about $7,500 an acre, which would make the Grosser's land worth about $2 million. The company's first offer was twice that, $4 million. Then the offer doubled again, more than $8 million. Finally, the company asked Dr. Grosser to name his price.
So why don't you say 30 million, 50 million?
That money can't buy happiness.
It can buy a lot, though.
Well, it can't buy that.
Tyler McHugh is in charge of attracting economic development to the area.
Are you able to do this without the Grosser's land?
It can be done. The scale of it might have to be changed.
And if that happens, Dr. Grosser's land may be left pristine, but it could also be butted up against a massive data center and be worth quite a bit less than $8 million. In Mason County, this is David Winter reporting.
Different states, similar pressures, similar outcomes. If this is happening where you live, familiar fields being replaced with infrastructure, let me know in the comments. When did you first notice it? As farmland transitions into other uses, one resource appears again and again in planning discussions. Water. Large-scale development does not just require land. It requires reliable access to water, power, and infrastructure. This becomes especially visible when looking at industrial facilities and data centers. Public reporting and municipal records show that some modern data centers can require hundreds of thousands, and in certain cases millions, of gallons of water per day for cooling. In multiple states, residents have raised concerns that detailed water usage data is not always publicly disclosed early in the process. Would you want a data center like this one in your backyard? Ohio and neighboring states are often viewed as attractive because of perceived water availability, even though local aquifers and water systems vary widely. Water agreements are often negotiated at the municipal level and, in some cases, protected by non-disclosure agreements. That raises questions about allocation, sustainability, and long-term priorities, especially as agricultural land gives way to industrial use. Another visible change across rural landscapes is the expansion of utility-scale solar on former farmland. In many cases, these projects are driven by energy developers seeking large parcels near transmission lines. Farmers who lease land for solar often describe the decision as practical. Solar leases can offer predictable income over decades, something traditional farming does not provide. For some families, that income makes retirement possible. For others, it helps cover medical expenses or keep part of the farm operating. At the same time, once land is converted for large-scale energy infrastructure, it rarely returns to traditional agriculture. Construction can compact soil, alter drainage, and permanently change land use. Again, this is not about intent. It is about incentives. By this point, a pattern begins to emerge. Housing developments, data centers, and energy projects all operate within systems built around predictability. They rely on contracts, stable revenue, and long-term planning. Farming does not. Farmers absorb weather risk, market volatility, rising costs, and physical labor without guaranteed income, healthcare, or retirement benefits. When land is evaluated within these competing systems, it tends to move toward the uses that can guarantee stability. This does not mean farming is less important. It means farming is valued differently. Over time, that imbalance reshapes landscapes quietly, one decision at a time. Stories like this rarely feel historic while they are happening. They only become history later, after the land is gone and people start saying, "There used to be something else here." This is one of those moments worth documenting before it slips into memory. At the local level, these broader forces show up in zoning meetings, infrastructure debates, and planning decisions just like these. In places like Clermont County and Batavia, residents have raised concerns about roads, schools, water systems, and long-term growth. In some cases, voters opposed zoning changes tied to large projects. Even so, development moved forward. Local governments are often balancing growth, tax revenue, and community pressure while operating within state laws that limit local control. Once farmland is removed from agriculture, rezoned, and connected to utilities, additional development becomes easier. Each approval sets the stage for the next. Over time, communities change in ways that are difficult to reverse. This investigation does not point to a single cause or a single solution. What it reveals is a convergence. Aging farmers, fragile succession, and a system in which the people who grow food bear the greatest risk. If farming continues to offer less stability than development, infrastructure, or energy production, farmland will continue to move toward whoever can guarantee returns. That outcome is not ideological, it is economic. So the question going forward is this: if these trends continue, what happens to local food production, water priorities, and rural communities? And at what point do we decide that keeping farmers on the land matters enough to support them, the way we support every other critical sector? Those answers are not settled, but the direction we are moving is becoming clearer. This is history in the making, not because of a single project or decision, but because of many quiet ones, layered over time. And once the land changes hands, it rarely changes back. I'm Rowan, and this is OTRA Legends. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy hunting.